This video is going to discuss the graduation requirements at the law school and explain how you can talk to a student about graduating in 3 years if they're petitioning for an academic overload. Let's start with talking about the graduation requirements. This is the JD sample graduation checklist that you'll get in your advisor packet. You'll see it lists all the required courses. You'll notice that all the required courses are mostly bar tested subjects, except for legal writing or skills, legal research. We also have the requirement that students need to take core mediation, which is 2 units, as well as at least 2 clinical units. So these are mandatory electives that they need to take. The rest are all mandatory classes. Now, when you look at the mandatory classes, you'll see the number of units. It says 6 for the academic year. If it says 6, that means it's a year-long course. They're taking the first part of contracts in the fall and then the second part of contracts in the spring. If you see something that says 3 units, that usually means it's a 1 semester course. So it's either going to be taken in the fall of the 3L year or in the spring of the 3L year. And then, of course, you see all these miscellaneous 2 unit things that are sometimes taken in 1 semester, like the summer, or it's split up between 1 unit in the fall and 1 unit in the spring. It just depends, right? And this is where understanding what is offered in the fall and the spring will help you with your course counseling. And to understand that, you can click on, or you will get a packet that has the graduation requirements that students also get. And this breaks down all these required courses by semester as well as unit. So you see CANCHAS, it says 6 unit course, must complete fall and spring semesters. It's a year-long course, right? So it lists all the courses that they're going to take in their first year. You see legal writing, 2 units, must complete fall and spring semesters year-long. So you know you take 1 unit in the spring and 1 unit in the fall. Legal skills, it's only offered in the fall. It's 1 unit. It's a 1 semester course. Same with professional responsibility. It's a 2 unit course. It's offered in the summer. It's 1 semester. So this breaks down in more detail what the requirements are for their first, second, third, and fourth year, right? And you can review this, and if you have more questions, let me know, but it's pretty detailed. But we'll go ahead and scroll to the bottom because most of the questions that you will get will relate to electives, not as much the required courses. And like we talked about, there's the mandatory elective units, which is core mediation, 2 units. They can take it whenever. And then they also have to take 2 clinical study units. Now, this is a special moment where I want to stop and pause if you're working with Monterey College of Law students at the MCL campus, because they have 2 clinical study units, but they also must complete this thing called the Small Claims Advisory Clinic. So if they're at the MCL campus, they need to take two clinical requirements plus 1 additional small claims advisory clinic. So that's a total of 3 clinical units. If they're at SLO or Kern County or the hybrid program, they don't have to take the small claims advisory clinic. They can if they want to, and if they do, it'll count as an elective unit. This is why you'll see that MCL students must complete 15 units of electives because they have to do it 3 clinical units instead of 2 clinical units, versus SLO and Kern students complete 16 units of electives because they're only required to do 2 clinical units, right? And then, of course, if you have a student that's doing a joint degree, they have to do the extra appellate writing in addition to their JD requirements to get this joint degree. Now, the hardest thing about working with students when it comes to these graduation requirements are when students want to finish early or they want to move things around. Because you'll notice remedies, wills, and trusts, there's required semesters where they take it. So if we went down to the 3L year, it's required to take community property. It's only offered in the fall. And then you have moot court, which is only offered in the summer, remedies, which is only offered in the spring, and wills and trusts, which is only offered in the fall. So there isn't a lot of leeway for them to move their schedule around to get all their requirements done because they need to take it in a certain semester. And they also have to meet these prerequisites. So they need to do real property and community property as prerequisites to take wills and trusts. But that doesn't actually happen until they take a community property in the fall of their 2L year or their 3L year, because they're taking real property in the fall of their 2L year. So the program is designed for them to take each course in order so that they can finish the prerequisites to now graduate in 4 years. So when a student now is asking you, can I graduate in 3 years? How do I do it? This is how I usually explain the graduation requirements to them. I show this spreadsheet, which I created and it auto calculates, is pretty much a spreadsheet version of that beautiful booklet we just looked at, right? It has all the required courses, it has the units, it has the semesters it's being offered, and then it has a section in blue for the electives that they're taking, the electives they take in fall, spring, and summer. And for 1Ls, it's usually always going to be 0. Maybe you'll have 4 here in the summer if they took a course. It doesn't matter. But the nice thing about this spreadsheet is the students can add in the numbers of the electives in the blue, and it'll automatically calculate here at the bottom how many electives they've completed. So if they did 1 elective here, 1 elective here, and then they did 4 here, it'll go up to 22. Or if they realize, I don't need any more, I'm just going to take 3 electives here, and I'm going to take 2, I'm still definitely going to graduate on time because I only need 15 electives. Right? So first I explained to them, here's the requirements. Let's talk through it. You know, you have to take community property in the fall. You need to take community court in the spring, in the summer, sorry. You have to take wills and trusts. You have to take remedies. And here are all the prerequisites, right? Plus, don't forget, if you're MCL, you have to take the small claims unit. Plus, you have to take core mediation and this clinical unit. So once they understand this is what it looks like to do a 4-year plan, then I switch to the 3-year plan Excel sheet. And so this compares the 4 years on the left, right here, with the 3 years on the right, right? And so after I've explained to them, hey, these are all the requirements, you can see you have to take community property in the fall, but you have to take real property first in your 2L year in order to take it. I go straight to this section right here, which is the 4L year, because they're basically trying to graduate early, which means they need to take wills and trusts and remedies sometime in their 3L year. And the only way to do that is to take more courses in the fall and the spring, more required courses, which means they need to petition for the academic overload. Now, how does that look? In your 3L year, you already have these required classes, con law, business law, right, in the fall. And now you want to add wills and trust. But in order to do this, you have to, again, have a 79 or above. So they can petition to have this extra 3 units here. Then what happens is, oh, you're also taking community property. Sorry. So you're taking con law, business law, community property, and wills and trust. So you're taking a pretty heavy load. You're having 4 doctrinal classes, 4 bar courses, which is why you have to have a good grade point average in order to petition to do a 3-year plan. Then in the spring, you're taking con law, business law, as well as remedies, right? So we're having now 9 units of bar tested courses, which normally we don't let students do unless they've shown in the previous years that they've done well. In order to do this, they also have to waive prerequisites because you'll notice that community property is a prerequisite to wills and trust. And normally you take wills and trust in the 4L year. But here we're petitioning to take wills and trust and community property at the same time in your 3L year in the fall, right? So in order to do that, you have to show, hey, I can handle community property and wills and trust plus con law and business law. Once they understand that they have to score well and that they're going to have to take wills and trusts and remedies as required courses in their 3L year instead of their 4L year, so this becomes a 3L year, instead of the 4L year, then they're going to ask you questions about their electives. And this is where the blue section becomes really important. So you fill in what they've already done. So if they've had the institute, they get 2 electives. They have another elective, let's just say they took 4 electives in the summer. And then after you could see, hey, did they finish their core mediation requirement? If they finished it already, you can say they did it in their 2L year and they did it in the spring, right? So then you could keep a note of it. And they're going to do their clinical units in their 3L year in the spring and the summer. So you can show them how they can keep track of all this and then kind of just play around. Well, how many electives should you take? Well, here in your 2L year, we'll take 1 elective and then we'll take 2. Right? Or we're going to take clinical units instead of electives, right? Because these units here do not count towards electives. These are just separate requirements that you must take, but you still need to account for those units that you're taking each semester. So if you're taking 2 core mediation units in the spring of your 2L year, you might want to take like no electives because that's your elective, right? And then of course you, on average, students take 6 to 8 units in the summer. If you're trying to graduate early, you definitely want to be taking at least 6 units. Now, after you've kind of talked to them about the 2L year, you explain in the 3L year in the fall, they're probably not going to take any electives. There's too many doctrinal classes because remember, they have 4 doctrinal classes that are all bar tested courses. That's a really heavy load. I usually say no, I wouldn't take any electives in your 3L year for the fall, but you can go ahead and take it in your spring year. And here, look, we can even have a lower load because we only need 15 electives and we have 21. So this is where they can play around with it, and they only really need to take 2 and then 1 elective to get to 16 because they took so many in their 2L year. Or they can even take fewer in their 2L year and they can do 4 instead. It auto calculates however they want to do it. If they're required to take the moot court in the summer, then it doesn't really matter if they overload in the 2L year, because in the summer of their 3L year they'll be taking moot court and taking additional courses. They might as well spread out the load. But some students will want to do early bar prep, so they might want to take 0 electives here and, I don't know, take 7 units here so that they don't have to worry about anything in their 3L summer and they can start studying for the bar. But this is just a really quick way to show you how the 3-year plan works. Again, it's really this section here, which is the wills and trusts and remedies that students need to figure out because these are required courses and it gives them a really heavy load, as well as making sure that they know they have to take moot court in their 3L year in the summer, which is something that was required before, but they're just really moving these 2 courses, wills and trusts and remedies, from the 4L year to the 3L year. And again, if this is confusing, feel free to ask any questions, or before you meet with a student, I'm happy to talk through it again. But this just gives you a really quick rundown of how to explain the 3-year plan to students who are doing well and want to graduate early.